Hello everyone, welcome back to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, dated 10th February 2026. Today again we will be discussing some important topics that has appeared in today's The Hindu and the Indian Express newspapers, which are relevant for your examination. In the initial two topics, we have included two mains practice questions, which will be useful for your upcoming mains examination. In the analysis section, in our first topic, we'll try to understand the reasons behind rising urban tragedies and solutions to address them. In our second topic, we'll examine how SMEs can help address India's job crisis. Thereafter, keeping in mind upcoming prelims examination 2026, we will discuss 5 important prelims pointers that will be highly useful for your preparation. So, stay tuned. So, let's start our discussion with the first topic, that is an urban tragedy. The context of this topic is that a write-up has appeared covering various aspects of recent urban tragedies and associated concerns. This is related to syllabus of your GS paper 2, urbanization and local self-governance. If you are a person who is reading the newspaper and you are also keeping a tab on the social media, probably you would be aware of the fact that there was a 27-year-old IT professional who lost his life in Greater Noida because his car submerged into a deep pit, and that person was also seeking help for hours, but still the help even that could not be provided in a time bound manner, and that person lost his life. A similar kind of incident happened in Janakpuri, Delhi, where a biker falls into a pit on road itself, and that person also lost his life. In Indore, few weeks back, there were people who lost their lives because there was contaminated water that was supplied to them. So what we are witnessing, that there is a systemic failure in the urban infrastructure in most of the urban centers. The urban local bodies, they are not able to provide even the basic amenities to the people, that is proper roads, good quality of air, then potable water, or even the sanitation or the housing facilities. So what are the major reasons for this failure of urban infrastructure? First of all, what we need to understand, that there is a consistent rise in the urban population. If you see this graph from 1951 to 2011, which was the last census that was conducted, there is a consistent increase in the number of urban population in million. Also, if you see this data from United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, it says that India's urban population is set to grow massively in next 3 decades. Also, it says that the 40% of India's population is projected to live in urban areas by 2030, which is up from 34% in 2011. But it also says that 31% of urban households lack access to piped water or public tap water. After that, things has improved, but still, there is lack of proper amenities in the urban centers. One of the major reason is that the pull factors, because of which we are seeing more number of people coming to the urban centers. There is good quality of educational facilities, hospital or health facilities, also employment avenues that are available in the urban centers that attracts the people, because we have the poor availability of education, employment and health avenues in the rural areas. But there is a maximum limit of the urban centers which they can sustain easily. When we are witnessing this much of influx in the urban centers, it becomes really difficult to manage this population sustainably. And along with that, the problem is becoming much more worse because of these factors. First of all, there is an absence of comprehensive master plan for every city. If there is a master plan, that how we should divide that whole land that is available for that city. There is a land use pattern that we plan. There is a zonation that is done, that okay, this much of area will be there for people to live. This is the area that will be for the government building. This will be the area which will be kept green to ensure that the citizens are getting proper quality of air, and this can be utilized for the industrial purposes. But there is an unplanned growth that we are witnessing in most of the urban centers, and when there is an haphazard growth that we witness, what we witness, the cases of urban floodings, or even if you'll see in most of the colonies in Delhi or in Mumbai, what people are generally doing when they are making their houses, etc., their balconies or other some of the parts of the homes are on road itself. And whenever any kind of fire tragedies will happen, you will see fire tenders are not able to reach the site of the tragedy. Also, there is land use mismatch that we are witnessing, that several people who are taking up those areas which are meant for some other purposes, and the channels for the flow of the water, etc., wetlands, etc., they are also being utilized for the unintended purposes, and because of which we are seeing such negative consequences. More than that, there are other important issues, for example, short-term and ad hoc planning that is there, which is mainly reactive in nature, that whenever any incident will happen, urban local bodies will wake up and they will take some measures, but those will be the piecemeal measures. They will be only for the sake of doing it. They will not understand that next year also there can be some incident like this that can happen, or even after days there can be an incident that can happen. For example, in most of the cities in 2026 or 25, you will see, you have seen that the floodings do happen. These urban local bodies, these people do understand that every year floods will come. But even with that, or even with knowing this fact that rainy season will come, they wait for the first rain. When they witness that in some of the areas there is a flooding that is being reported, then probably they will go for the desilting or declogging the drains or the sewers that are there. But that can be done before the rainy season. People will probably feel much better, but that is not done. Also, the poor interagency coordination that is there. For example, let's suppose electricity department or any department which is overseeing the Net project, they have to, let's suppose, lay the cable. Then there is another department which is looking up to the sewer. They also have to lay some pipes, etc. And there is another department, let's suppose they have to look up to the potable water supply facilities. For them also they have to again lay another pipe. But all these three will come at three different times. They will not come at one time. Just tell me, all the departments just tell me that is there a need to dig this road at this point of time? Do you have certain other works to do? All that will not be done at one point of time. Rather, it will be done at different times, and which will further create difficulties for the people. Or let's suppose here in the first case, whatever the different responsibilities are there, always what we witness that they are completely different. There is no coordination. For example, one of the agencies or one of the bodies who has created that pit, now generally there is no oversight mechanism that with the help of which we can actually see that this can be dangerous to the people. There is no mechanism with the help of which the responsibility or accountability can be ensured, or some kind of punitive actions can be taken. Also, because of this institutional fragmentation where different responsibilities are divided, the hierarchy that is there, and overlapping jurisdictions that are there with the different agencies, it leads to an ineffective governance and lack of timely response in the case of the contingency. Also, shortage of the urban planning professionals, that we do not have good number of architects or civil engineers, etc. in place who can actually help in designing the urban infrastructure in a better manner, with the help of which the people's life can be improved. Also, weak public participation, the poor civic sense, zero civic sense, which was the trend that was also going on. That we do understand that we are living in the urban centers. We often complain that we are not getting proper facilities in the urban centers. But we should also ask one question to ourselves, that are we doing our part? Isn't it the case that we are also some of the participant in defacing all the urban infrastructure? When government is saying that you should segregate your waste at homes itself, but still we are not segregating that. All that waste is going in one direction itself, the landfill sites which are visible in different areas. So because of this weak public participation, and more than that, even people are not demanding that this should be done in a timely manner. They complain and then they don't look up to that at the later time. Whenever the elections come, you see the urban apathy, that people are not interested in even casting their votes. So because of this top-down planning which is there, where people are not consulted, because of lack of stakeholder engagement, that all the stakeholders like civil society organizations, etc., that are there, when they are not properly engaged, the democratic deficit that is there, that people are not accepting or understanding their importance, that their each vote has a greater value, and that is the reason there is no point at all at the later stage to complain regarding that. But there are also issues at the implementation stage. For example, only 40% drains under the MCTs were desilted under the night before downpour, and that is one of the reasons why we witnessed the flooding. There is no mechanism, or there is lack of any dedicated bodies who can identify the number of dangerous pits which are there in the urban centers, which can actually lead to death of the people. And you will not believe, I think in most of the urban centers still there will be such kind of pits which can be dangerous to some of the people, but still these urban local bodies are not waking up from their sleep. So the issues at the implementation stage is that overburdened or negligent urban local bodies that are there. There are urban local bodies where elections are not happening on time. For example, after the intervention from Supreme Court, the elections started in the Maharashtra and some of the other states where the urban local bodies were being seen by the executives like IAS officers, etc. So there is issue at the implementation stage. For example, overburdened and negligent urban local bodies. For example, the elections, they are not happening on time in some of the urban local bodies, be it the case of the Maharashtra or some other states. After the intervention of Supreme Court, elections happened. Along with that, they also have lot of other works to do. For example, administrative works like the documents related to birth, deaths, etc. The lack of resources, lack of manpower they have. So they are also overburdened. Plus, when untimely elections happen, untimely appointment of the people happen, that also further limits their resources with the help of which they can provide the effective governance. Also, poor quality and substandard materials that are being used. For example, you can see different types of bridge collapse that news of which we constantly see, especially from the Bihar. There is poor mechanism that whenever a company is building any infrastructure and that has collapsed, so that company should be blacklisted. And when even from the first stage itself, when the company is selecting the raw materials, there is lack of proper mechanism, lack of proper checks and balances, with the help of which we can actually check the quality of material which is being supplied, the quality of material which is being used. And because of which we see this failure of urban infrastructure. Also, lack of periodic maintenance, that once any infrastructure is built, it requires bare minimum maintenance at a time bound manner. Sometimes what we see that there is a different agencies, there is a different agency which has been given the responsibility of maintenance of that urban infrastructure, but that is not doing their work properly. For example, few months back, there was a death of one of the cab driver on Delhi airport itself because there was a pillar that collapsed. And that was one of the example of the poor maintenance of that infrastructure. There was the agency which was given the responsibility of maintenance, they were not doing their work properly. Also, absence of timely safety audits. There are different responsibilities that are given to different bodies for the audits of that urban infrastructure, with the help of which we can get a time bound resolution for any problem that can come in future, or we can get an idea that whether that urban infrastructure can sustain in future or not. Also, weak punitive and enforcement mechanisms that are there. For example, solid waste management rules are there, plastic waste management rules are there, but there is weak enforcement mechanisms. Still, you can see the single-use plastics are being readily used in most of the urban and the rural areas. Public apathy and low civic responsibilities that we often complain to the urban local bodies that okay, they are, or the system, that they are not working properly. But are we doing our part properly? Answer is no. We still use that single use plastic in market itself. We take that because we do not have the bags. Also, with the other measures that are there, for example, we know that there is some responsibility that has to be done as a citizen. For example, here the case of this biker who falls into pit, there were several people who saw that biker falling in that pit, but still they didn't help. Just think the civil apathy or the poor public apathy that is there. Also, there are certain case studies on urban safety and especially the floodplain or the infrastructure management. For example, in Netherlands, one of the case studies, Room for River, where Netherlands is a low-lying country and that faces the flood risk, but they went with the floodplain restoration. They also made bypass channels, and because of which there has been a reduced flood risk. So with the proper planning, we can also reduce the instances of floods and associated deaths. Singapore ABC Waters program, that they had dense urbanization, frequent urban floods, but they went with this naturalized canals, strict drainage norms, smart monitoring and integrated planning that has helped in major flood reduction. In India, the Sabarmati river front that was made in Ahmedabad, So here also there was flood prone encroached river banks that were witnessed. Whenever river banks or wetlands are being encroached, so in a way we are also impacting the possibility of the the rainwater going into these urban bodies. So with under this river fund program, flood control embankments were made, river channel demarcation were done, relocation of settlements were done, and that has actually helped in better flood management, urban renewal, as well as also it has helped in achieving the tourism growth of that city. So all these measures can actually help us in ensuring that we are able to provide a sustainable city which is livable. Also, some of the measures that can be taken to address the underlying issues in the urban infrastructure. First of all, we need a robust planning and time-bound execution. For example, there can be dedicated master plans that can be made for different cities, and that should be scientific project planning with a realistic timeline, and every agency should ensure that they are following that timeline properly. Also, milestone based monitoring to prevent delays and cost overruns. For example, if roads are being constructed or infrastructure, that there can be a timeline with regard to the milestone that can be given to them, that this much of construction you have to complete within this month itself. Also, institutionalized and mandatory oversight mechanism, that there is need for regular audits, independent supervision and periodic review by statutory authorities to ensure transparency and compliance. That the agency which has been given the responsibility of maintenance, they should do their part properly, and also the audit should be done properly, so that any kind of risk that may arise in future, that can be flagged easily. Strict accountability and responsibility fixation. For example, whenever a death is happening, for example in Noida techie death case itself, the CEO of the Noida authority was kept on waiting, but that is not an action that will create a deterrence in future. So there can be some performance linked penalties, that if there is a poor development of any one project, poor progress of any one project, so that company or that agency or the person involved might have to face some actions in future. Also, enforcement of contractual obligations for both public and private partners. Enforcement of high quality and safety standards in PPP projects. For example, there is need for mandatory adherence to the technical standards which has been already finalized. Also, we can follow some of the technical standards from other countries which are already proven to be very effective. Also, third party quality checks can be there to ensure that the proper quality of materials are being supplied and used. And there can be life cycle performance audits, that there can be audits that can be done to get an idea that whether that infrastructure will be able to sustain in future properly or not. Then individual level ethical conduct and professional responsibility. For example, as an individual, we can do our part properly, and then probably if we will complain, then at least there is a moral whatever the moral responsibility that we had done our part. So integrity, transparency, duty based work culture, all this should be ingrained in the people, and this can be achieved with the help of socialization, that what people are learning from the schools, from the homes itself. So if there is a culture that they are understanding from their childhood itself, that okay, we should not deface the urban infrastructure, we should respect the elders, or even the basic things which are there. If there is some problem that we are witnessing on the road, so we can dial the body or whatever the part that we can do. For example, I've seen various videos where there were several problems in the roads or the urban infrastructure. There are several citizens and NGOs who are ensuring that they are keeping some mark on that place itself, so that other people are not endangering their lives. So this kind of things can be engaged. Also, official engineers, contractors and stakeholders. Also, another important measure that can be taken is development of counter magnet cities. For example, if the people from Bihar, Eastern UP, etc. are coming to Delhi or Mumbai for better jobs, we can develop some of the urban centers in these states, and we can provide proper industrial lands to the industries. We can provide consistent supply of electricity, and with proper capacity building hand holding for the industries, these cities can actually provide various jobs with the help of industrial clusters. For example, let's suppose Patna can be developed as one of the counter magnet cities, or Lucknow can be developed, or some other cities like Varanasi, etc. can be also developed. So the people who were earlier migrating to Delhi, they will come to these centers because they are far near to their native place itself. We can provide better opportunities for education in these centers. We can also provide better opportunities and facilities of health in these centers. So people will not have any need to migrate to the urban centers like Delhi and Mumbai. Also, this is a mains practice question that you people can write from this particular topic. Moving towards our next topic, that is lessons about job creation from Misty Milk. And the context of this topic is that a write-up has appeared which demonstrates the role of credit access, formalization and value addition in sustainable job creation. And this is related to syllabus of your GS paper 3, growth and development, industrial policy and industrial growth. So the writers of this editorial actually visited the dairy cluster in Erode, and what they observed that the small and medium enterprises are facing various constraints related to credit, skills, regulation and tariffs. And taking Misty Milk, which is a company very famous in Kerala, they took this as an example and they say that the turnover of this particular company is around 2500 plus crores and they are sourcing milk from 2000 plus farmers. But the capacity of their plants are that they can easily handle more than 70,000 farmers. So what is the problem? Why this much of farmers are not supplying milk to the Misty Milk? It is because of the fact that the farmers are lacking affordable credit. They do not have that credit or the capacity that they can provide more milk or raw material to these dairy based companies. So credit is one of the major bottlenecks because farmer actually need capital for cattle, feed, seeds and veterinary care, that they need money to buy the cattle or the feeds like corn etc. that is given to them, sheds that they actually build for keeping those cattle, veterinary care because with the rising climate change etc. or new types of disease like foot and mouth disease etc. that are coming, there is need for better veterinary care. And in India, around 85% to 86% of farmers are small and marginal. They do not have that collateral with the help of which they can get the affordable and formal credit. And because of which they are dependent on informal high interest loans. And when they are getting this high interest loans and which is informal from the money lenders, sahukars, etc., they get trapped in the vicious cycle of debt trap. And also, when the most of their remuneration, profits etc. is going towards payment of the whatever the interest that is being charged on the informal loans, there is low investment because earlier whatever the money that they will be saving, that will come towards the investment. So they cannot buy further cattle, they cannot build better sheds etc. Also, when investment is not happening in this particular sector and especially with the farmers, that also creates low output and lower jobs. Also, because of this informalization in the case of the debt that we witness with the farmers, when farmers are in the vicious cycle of debt trap, some of them unfortunately also choose the path of suicides. For example, as per NCRB 2023, around 10,200 farmers chose the path of suicides unfortunately. Also, the evidences that we can see from the small and medium enterprises, that the main growth barriers for them is the lack of proper skilled employees. That the employees which are there or the potential employees which are there, they do not have proper skills. They do not have that much of a skill with the help of which the dairy sector and these clusters can actually gain further. Also, the compliance burden, especially the state-based regulations that are there, that actually leads to an additional cost for these companies. The tax uncertainty is there, lack of proper consistency, lack of proper coherence with regard to the policies. More than that, the tariff wars that are going on, retaliatory and reciprocal tariffs which are being imposed by different countries, that further creates an uncertainty for this sector. Also, when the tariffs will be there, the input on the inputs that are being used, that will further increase the overall input cost and that will further jeopardize or squeeze the overall profits or the remuneration of the farmers. Also, when these small and medium enterprises are unable to scale, that leads to low number of jobs or fewer jobs. Why these small and medium enterprises actually matter? Because they provide 70% of global jobs as per the World Bank. They are also one of the main source of employment in developing countries like India, where we are not witnessing such big industries, but rather these MSMEs are one of the major employers. Also, these are capital intensive, whatever the capital intensive growth that we witness, that for example, any company which is investing in better machineries, better technologies or IPR, etc., that doesn't create jobs. That is not labor intensive. So majorly it is the small, medium and micro enterprises which are one of the major job creators. So let's try to understand the status of the MSME sector also. Earlier, the investment and turnover limit for the MSME was less, but it was revised in Union Budget 2025. The revised investment limit and turnover limit has been increased to 2.5 crore and 10 crore for micro enterprise, 25 crore and 100 crore for small enterprises, 125 crore and 500 crore for the medium enterprises. And why this was done? This was done to address the issue of the dwarfism. That earlier, some of the MSMEs were not scaling. Why? Because if they will scale and they will breach this limit of investment and turnover, they will lose the benefits that they were getting on account of being MSME itself. That is the reason the investment and turnover limit was increased, so that these particular industries has a motivation to scale. Also, if you see the contribution of these MSMEs, they are contributing around 30.1% in 2022-23 in our total gross value added. The share of MSMEs with regard to the GVA in the India's GDP is around 30.1% in 2022-23. Okay. And growth of MSME exports, that was 3.95 lakh crore in 2020-21, and it has increased exponentially to 12.39 lakh crore in year 2024-25. Now, what is the role, what is the significance of these MSMEs in Indian economy? First of all, that their contribution in GDP and industrial growth, that they strengthen domestic supply chain as well as industrial clusters. That whatever the supply chain is there, domestic supply chain, even from the perspective of consumers, a lot of products are coming from the MSMEs itself, which are affordable as well as people can access them easily. Along with that, some of the MSMEs are also providing certain products to the big companies, and they are contributing around 45% to overall manufacturing output and 46% to export and 30% to the GDP. They are also one of the major providers of the employment and livelihoods. For example, they are the largest non-farm job provider. Almost 7.5 crore jobs are being provided by the MSME sector itself. Also, they are supported by other schemes like Samarth, etc. Then you have the exports and global reach, that it account for 45.73% of India's export in 2023-24, and majorly their presence is in labor intensive sectors like textiles, leather, engineering goods, etc. That helps us in improving our export potential, that also helps us in earning better foreign exchanges, and that also helps us in creating a better balance of payment. Then digital and tech transformation, that 72% of MSMEs transactions are happening in digital form, in online mode. They are mainly driven by ONDC or Open Network for Digital Commerce, which is a government backed platform, so that the smaller players can also come where the commission etc. are negligible. Also, 1 lakh crore innovation fund is there. RBI is also providing credit platforms. SIDBI etc. has also came with certain platforms like 59-minute loans. Also, women and social impact, that women are owning around 25% of Udyam registered MSMEs. That also shows the female empowerment, that this is one of the sectors where we are witnessing major presence of women. Women oriented or women owned MSMEs are there. Also, the rural and agro enterprises, that they all are also one of the major contributors to addressing the issue of the migration. That if you see, that majorly the micro, small and medium enterprises are based in rural and semi-urban areas. So whatever the population or the persons who were intending to go to urban centers like Delhi and Mumbai, now they are getting jobs in their area itself or near their native places itself. So that is also helping in addressing the migration, and subsequently that is helping in de-burdening the urban infrastructure. Also, green and sustainable growth, that some of these MSMEs are adopting clean energy and circular economy models, with the help of which overall emissions are reducing, overall wastages etc. are also reducing. Also, this is supported by the RAMP, that is raising and accelerating MSME performance, which is a program supported by the World Bank, and it is from the Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises. And this actually aims to scale up the implementation of capacity and coverage of MSMEs and with the impact enhancement of existing MSME schemes by fostering innovation, encouraging ideation, improving practice process and enhancing their market access. Then the major challenges which are being faced by the MSMEs, the limited access to credit, that was the same problem that we were discussing in the initial phase, that it is not only the farmers who are facing the issue of the credit, even the small medium enterprises or the micro enterprises, they are also facing the issue of the credit. As per one of the report that was released by the CRISIL, it says that the 20% of MSMEs have only access to formal credit. Also, there are around 2.5 crore people out of 6.3 crore MSMEs who avail the institutional finance. So only this much of around 1/3 is the population that is accessing the MSMEs. The 1/3 MSMEs have the access to the institutional finance or the formal credit. And when they are not having the accessibility of the formal credit, that actually creates a burden on them. That also creates an additional cost for them, and that actually raises the overall interest for them. Then there is a regulatory burden that they are facing, which is complex overlapping regulations with regard to the different labor laws that are there, with regard to the local level rules and regulations that are there, with regard to different regulations in the states that are there, the regulations related to taxations and environment related laws and regulations that are there. Also the frequent policy which keeps on changing and high compliance cost, that whenever there will be a regulatory burden, whenever there will be a policy inconsistency and lack of policy coherence, that will create an additional cost for the MSMEs, and that will also lead to squeezing up their overall profits. Then skill and technology gaps are there. For example, limited skill workforce is there. That one of the major issue that is being faced by the MSMEs is that whatever the potential employment or the people who are seeking the jobs, they are not having the required skills with the help of which the overall output and the potential of MSMEs can be improved. Also, they are mainly using the outdated machineries, that they have lack of proper technology, they have lack of proper machinery, and because of that also the overall cost of their products increases, and that further limits the competitiveness of their product. Only 6% of MSMEs actually uses e-commerce for sale. Why? Because they have poor accessibility. Why? Because these MSMEs do not have the proper availability of knowledge that how they can come on board on these e-commerce platforms, etc. That further limits their overall reach and customer base. Then 45% of them have only adopted to any form of AI as per a survey that was done by Ministry of MSME. So the problem is that when they are not adopting AI, that is further adding to their overall cost. They cannot understand that what actually the customers are demanding. They cannot cater to their demands in an effective manner. Also, infrastructure constraints that are there. For example, poor connectivity is there, high logistics cost is there. For example, as per various estimates, the logistics cost as percentage of GDP in India is very high as compared to developed country. It is around 14 to 18% of GDP. So when we have the high logistics cost and poor connectivity, that further adds to their overall cost, and they have the limited access to industrial parks where there are various common infrastructure that are available, and they also have the limited accessibility of common facilities, high speed internet, etc. That further limits their overall growth and potential. Also, the challenges associated with the market access and global competitiveness. For example, they have the low integration with global value chains, and they have the poor knowledge and support with regard to the branding, export support and quality compliance. And when they are not complying with the overall quality control norms, the problem is that their products are becoming less competitive. That is getting a negative image in the global front. For example, MDH Everest masalas that were there, that is in our kitchens also, they were sent back by Hong Kong, Singapore, European Union. Why? Because there was presence of ethylene oxide beyond permissible limit. Ethylene oxide is used in pharma industry, medical industry for sterilization of various equipments that are being used. In masalas or spices, they are using it to prevent the germination of worms, etc. But in India, they are selling anything, we are eating anything. But in the foreign markets, the overall quality norms are much more stringent. If the companies will not follow the quality norms, then their products will not be allowed to be sold in that market. Also, low scheme awareness and utilization, that the process for getting affordable credit, etc., that is very complex, and that also deter the first time and rural entrepreneurs. The process of registration, process of onboarding on the GST portal, etc. is also a little difficult for the people who are not that technically sound and administratively sound. Also, sustainability and ESG compliance. For example, in India, around MSME, whatever the MSME units are there, they are emitting around 110 million tons of CO2. So, although some of them has shifted to clean energy, but still a majority of them are using the poor technologies, old age technologies, and that is leading to overall carbon emissions, contributing to overall GHG emissions also. High cost of green technology and lack of incentives that further hinders their transition towards these cleaner energy sources. Also, non-compliance that actually risk the export losses. For example, if comprehensive border adjustment mechanism CBAM is there, that is one of the compliance burden that has been created by the European Union. So if these companies will not shift to the renewable sources with the low carbon footprint on their product, their product will not be allowed in European Union. When they are shifting, they are transitioning, that is adding to their cost, that is squeezing up their profits. Also, if you see the number of MSMEs, they are generally limited in some of the states. That we are not witnessing an equitable distribution. Why? Because some of the states like Maharashtra has better policies and better support for capacity building, hand holding for the MSMEs, which is not the case in most of the states. So that is also one of the major challenge, that they are limited to one of the states or few of the states itself. Government is taking various initiatives to support MSMEs. For example, you have Credit Guarantee Fund Trust for MSMEs, under which loans up to 5 crore are being provided without any collateral. Then Mudra Yojana, which was launched in 2015. Here again, the credit is being provided to first time entrepreneurs. 27 lakh crore was dispersed till financial year 2024. Also, priority sector lending norms are there, which are for commercial bank, RRBs, etc. So under this, there are certain sectors which RBI itself is saying that you should lend to these sectors. So overall, 7.5% of their adjusted net bank credit is mandated for MSMEs itself. Udyam registration portal is there, under which 5.93 crore MSMEs are registered, and on account of their registration, they are linked to various financial services and they also get various benefits. Then trade receivables discounting system or TREDS, that is a digital platform for bill discounting from corporates and government buyers, with the help of which they can get their working capital. And emergency credit line guarantee scheme, 3.61 lakh crore dispersed to MSMEs till financial year 24. There are various initiatives from SIDBI also. For example, SIDBI 59 minutes portal for instant loan approvals for the MSMEs. Sampark and Samadhan portal, that is online resolution of payment delays and vendor registrations. MSME champions portal is there, which is a single window for finance, tech upgradation and export support. There, what should be the path ahead, what should be the way forward for the overall development of not only the Erode dairy cluster but for overall MSME? First of all, we need to expand the overall digital credit access. For example, uniform lending platform, etc., which is on the line of the UPI platform. That with the help of that digital credit access, probably these MSME units, the farmers, especially the small and marginal, they can also get better credit. Also, we can use Udyam, Aadhaar, Bhim UPI, etc. for the low cost credit that can be provided to them. And mainly collateral free loans needs to be promoted, so that these particular MSME units do not feel the limit of their working capital needs. The account aggregator, that there can be secured data sharing. Sahay GST enables invoice based digital lending. Based on the invoices of these MSMEs, they can get some kind of lendings. Also, the lending can be based on the cash flow of the company and which can be linked to the GSTN portal itself. And we can shift from asset based to revenue based credit to the companies, that instead of a collateral and asset, we can see what is the revenue generation or the cash flow of the company, and accordingly credit can be given to them. Formalization push, that we can link loan to the GST invoices, and that will further incentivize the GST registration, and that will further incentivize the formalization of the MSMEs. Also, targeted credit guarantees, that we can focus on salons, tourism, rural MSMEs during the crisis, because these are the sectors which are on rise and they can be one of the major employment generators in future. Also, we need to strengthen the SIDBI. For example, capital infusion can be done for the SIDBI, so that they can further provide the refinance facilities, and we need to boost the NBFC funding because they have the one of the better reaches also, especially in unserved and underserved areas. Also, Vyapar credit card in the line of the Kisan credit card that can be also provided to MSMEs, that can actually help us in fulfilling their needs of short-term credit. Also, system-wide KYC or know your customer norms can be also taken. That can help in faster onboarding and lower friction. Also, some of the recommendations which are given by different committees, for example, UK Sinha committee that came in 2019, the focus was on MSME credit ecosystem. That focus should be on cash flow based lending, threats expansion, etc. GST linked credit history, what we were just discussing, that was also recommended by UK Sinha committee. KV Kamath committee of 2020, they focused on COVID-19 induced MSME stress, that there is need for sector-wise restructuring framework, MSME debt resolution guidelines, etc. that were there, that which is the loan that will be categorized as NPA, etc. At that time, there was the guidelines that were revised. For example, in normal circumstances, any of the interest or principal that is unpaid for 90 days, in that case, that will be categorized as an NPA. But at that time, there were certain relaxations that were given. This was the question that was asked in 2023. Please answer this question in the comment box. And this is a mains practice question that you people can write from this particular topic. Moving towards our section of prelims pointers, the first topic is Kimberley Process. This is related to syllabus of your GS paper 2, important international institutions. And this has appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 6. So, what exactly is the Kimberley Process? It is a tripartite initiative involving governments, diamond industry and civil society. And the major objective of this Kimberley Process is to prevent trade in conflict diamonds that is actually used to finance the rebel activities against the legitimate government. So, what happens that let's suppose there is a country which is one of the producers of diamond, but there can be some of the rebel groups. Let's suppose they have taken arms against the legitimate government. So what they can do, they can sell whatever the diamond that is available in that country to the global market players, and whatever the money that they will be earning, that will be utilized for funding activities against the legitimate government. And that is the reason this Kimberley Process certification scheme came, that is established under the resolution of United Nations itself, and it came into effect on 1st January 2003. And under this scheme, it actually provides a certification mechanism to curb trade in conflict diamonds. And 60 participants are there, including European Union, and it almost covers 99% of global rough diamond trade. India is going to chair the Kimberley Process. India is selected as chair of Kimberley Process from 1st January 2026. It is also going to serve, it is also serving as vice chair from 25th December 2025 before assuming the chair. Third time India will hold this Kimberley Process chairmanship. The significance of this is that it actually reflects the global trust in India's trade integrity and transparency, that when India will be holding the chairmanship, it will take decision without any biasness, without any favor to any one entity. Also, India is one of the major global hub for the diamond manufacturing and trade, and that is also one of the reason why India is given the responsibility. And this also comes amid shifting geopolitics and focus on sustainable sourcing, that the countries who are trying to buy, they are also trying to buy from the players, from the countries which can supply their needs consistently without any disturbance. India's focus area for 25-26 will be to strengthen the governance and compliance, with the help of which the overall trade in the diamonds can further increase, promoting digital certification and traceability, so that there is less need for the physical certificates, and other stakeholders like customs, etc. can also access those certificates easily. Enhancing data-driven transparency, that one of the major issue under this is that whether that particular diamond is related to conflict or not, it becomes very difficult and it is very subjective to prove that. That is the reason it should be data driven, that there should be transparent objective criteria which can be taken into account, with the help of which we can get an idea that whether that is a conflict diamond or not. Also, building consumer trust in conflict-free diamonds. That is again one of the major focus area. And also making this Kimberley process a more inclusive and effective multilateral framework where other players can be also onboarded. Now, in this particular editorial, they are saying that whatever the core issues that are there, for example, the long-standing criticism is about the definition of the conflict diamonds. For example, its scope is very narrow, that it capture only the financial mechanism between the rebel group and the agreements, and it mainly not looks up to the issues like illicit use of rough diamonds in state-linked abuses, human rights violations and human trafficking, environmental harm, abusing in artisanal mining and illicit trade channels. Also about the issue of the decision making process. For example, civil society asks how the Kimberley process can even identify that this diamond is conflict diamond or not. So all these issues regarding to subjectivity and lack of objectivity needs to be addressed. Also, to address this community challenges, India can highlight how diamonds contribute to livelihood in Africa. It can also push this Kimberley process to explicitly acknowledge the reality by aligning its work with relevant sustainable development goals. For example, SDG 1 of no poverty, that this particular sale of the diamonds can actually help us in reducing reducing the poverty in certain African countries. Also, India can help ensure that this Kimberley process framework channels diamond revenues towards the community development, supporting health, education and local infrastructure rather than allowing mining regions to be bypassed. And this will actually help in shifting the narrative from blocking bad diamonds to enabling a responsible and inclusive diamond trade, which is helping in an overall inclusive growth as well as the quality of the life of the people who are dependent on this trade is also improving. Moving towards our next topic, that is removal of Speaker of Lok Sabha. This is related to syllabus of your GS paper 2 executive, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu page number 1. So if you talk about the different articles that are related to the office of the Speaker of the Lok Sabha or other constitutional provisions, so Article 93 talks about the elections, Article 94 talks about the vacation, resignation and removal of the office of a speaker. Article 95 actually talks about that the cases where deputy speaker can act as the speaker. And Article 96, that speaker cannot preside during the removal motion is in place. Article 97 talks about the salary allowances etc. of the Speaker of the Lok Sabha. Then Article 100 talks about the casting vote that the speaker has in case of the equality of the votes. Article 108, which talks about the joint sitting of both the houses, which will be presided by the Speaker of the Lok Sabha itself. Article 110, which talks about the money bill, that the certification that whether this bill is money bill or not, it will be given only by the Speaker of the Lok Sabha. And the 10th schedule, which was introduced later, that actually talks about the defection disqualification. So this, if you see the historical background of this office of the Speaker of Lok Sabha, we can trace its origin in Government of India Act of 1999. That earlier, whatever the speaker and deputy speaker were there, they were called president and deputy president. In the Government of India Act of 1935, they were renamed as speaker and deputy speaker. The elections of the Speaker of Lok Sabha is based on the Article 93, that the member of the Lok Sabha elects the speaker and he is always elected from the members of the Lok Sabha itself, and he can be only one of the sitting member of parliaments only, and whatever the election that is conducted, that is under the simple majority, and usually it is the nominee of the ruling party, that the party who is going to hold power, and he will first act of, this will be the first act of the new Lok Sabha, and he will not be having any separate oath, he will not be getting any separate oath as the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, rather only the oath of the member of parliament is sufficient for him. Also, the term of the Speaker of the Lok Sabha is that after the election and after taking the office of the Speaker of Lok Sabha, he will continue till the next Lok Sabha is meeting for the first time. So what does that mean? That means that during the time of elections also he will be holding the office. During the time of the general elections, he will be holding the office, and whenever the next Lok Sabha is going to meet for the first time, he will leave the office. Also, re-election for the post of the Speaker of the Lok Sabha is allowed, and he also continues after the dissolution of the Lok Sabha, and he will vacate his office if he ceases to be the member of parliament of the Lok Sabha, or he resigns to the deputy speaker. Most important information from here, one of the potential prelims question can come, that Speaker of the Lok Sabha gives his resignation to whom? So he gives his resignation to the deputy speaker. And Article 94 talks about the removal process, that he can be removed with an effective majority, that is the voting by the then members that are present. And Article 94 talks about the effective majority, that he should be first given a 14 days notice, and then during the motion of his removal he cannot preside. That is also talked about in Article 96. Also, he can speak, he can vote with no casting vote during the time when his motion of removal is in place. Salary of the Speaker of Lok Sabha is given in Article 97, that is fixed by the Parliament, and that is charged on the Consolidated Fund of India, that is not voted. Also, he is the head representative of the House of the People. He is the guardian of the different house committees that are there as well as members. He is also the principal spokesperson and the final parliamentary authority. That means he maintains the order and decorum in the house. He also regulates the debates, deliberations, discussions that happens in the house. And he is the final interpreter of the constitution within the house, the rules and the procedures as well as the precedents, conventions that are there. And he also adjourn the house whenever the quorum is not there, that is the 1/10 of the strength of the house. Along with that, various other legislative powers that are with the speaker, that he presides the joint sitting of the house. The decision regarding to money bill is also taken by the Speaker of Lok Sabha itself. And also, whenever any permission that is needed for the secret sitting of the house, that is also taken with the permission of the that meeting or that sitting also happens with the consent of the Speaker of the Lok Sabha. He does not have the power of vote in the initial phase, but he can vote in the case of tie, or he can have a casting vote in case of tie of votes. Also, he has certain disciplinary and quasi-judicial powers. For example, the defection qualification is generally seen by the Speaker of the Lok Sabha itself. Whatever the components that are given under the 10th schedule, that whether a member can be disqualified or not, that decision will be coming by the Speaker of the Lok Sabha. And in the Kyoto-Holohan case of 1992, it was said that the decision of the Speaker of the Lok Sabha with regard to the disqualification under the 10th schedule is under the judicial review. Also, with regard to the committees, the Speaker of the Lok Sabha can appoint committee chairperson. They can also supervise different committees. They are also the chairperson of different committees. For example, Business Advisory Committee is chaired by the Speaker of the Lok Sabha. Rules Committee and General Purpose Committee is also chaired by the Speaker of the Lok Sabha. He is also the ex officio chairman of Indian Parliamentary Group and also the Conference of Presiding Officers. Our next topic is Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. There are various issues which has been highlighted in today's Indian Express with regard to the different issues at different Kaushal Vikas Kendras that are visible. This topic is related to your GS paper 2, government policies and interventions, and this has appeared in today's The Indian Express page number 10. So this Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana was launched in 2015 and it is being implemented by Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, and it is being executed through the Development Corporation, National Skill Development Corporation, that is NSDC. This is the entity which is executing this Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. The objective of this scheme is to provide industry relevant skill training to the youth, that whatever the skill sets that are being provided to the individuals, that can help them in getting employment. Also, improve employability and livelihood opportunities for the people. Also, certify the existing skills of informal workers through the recognition of prior learning. The main components of Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana is that Short-term training is being provided to the people, skill training for unemployed youth in the school and college dropouts. Recognition of prior learning, for example, certification of existing skills are being given. Special projects, for example, customized training for the special group or the regions can also come according to the need of that area. The major features of this Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana is that free training and certification that is being given to the people, with the help of which they can get proper jobs. Also, training is aligned with the industry standards and the national skilled quality framework. Focus on placement linked demand driven skills, that whatever the skill sets that are being provided to them that can make them employable, they can get proper placement, and that skill is also being given to the people according to the demand of the industry. Also, for the 2023-26 phase, there was this Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana 4.0 that was launched, where the focus was on the industry 4.0 and future skills like artificial intelligence, robotics, internet of things, etc. And it was also integrated with Skill India digital platform. So there are total 4 phases: Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana 1.0, and this was the pilot phase in 2015-16, where around 19.85 lakh candidates were trained. Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana 2.0, 1.10 crore candidates were trained or oriented. Then Kaushal Vikas Yojana 3.0, under which 7.37 lakh candidates were trained, including 1.20 lakh candidates under the customized crash course program for COVID warriors. And then 4.0 that came, and as of July 11, 2025, over 25 lakh candidates have been trained under this phase. Okay. Also, the major significance of this is that it is actually going to address the skill gap. For example, as per India Skills Report 2025, there are more than 50% graduates who are non-employable because they do not have the proper skill sets. So this kind of program can actually help us in addressing that skill deficit. Also, it supports the employment generation and economic growth of our overall economy, because when people will be employed, they will have the proper job with the help of which they will get the proper salaries or the wages. They will have more money in their hand, and that when they will be spending in the economy, that will help in increasing the overall demand of the goods and services, that will help in increasing the overall production of the goods and services, because companies will now also be motivated to produce more. Why? Because these people are demanding more number of goods and services. Our next topic is related to bonded labor. This is related to GS paper 2, government policies and interventions, and Indian constitution, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 4. So this particular article is talking about the different instances of bonded labor that is actually visible in some of the industries like brick kiln industry. So as per National Commission on Labour, bonded labor is the labor which is performed to repay a debt where the worker remains in bondage for fixed or indefinite period. And this is the case that is generally visible in brick kiln, that these people actually migrate, and these are from the very humble background, from a very poor background, and whenever they come in any of the brick kiln industry, they are stuck at that place. They are not allowed to go from that place. Also, they are generally given minimum wages, with the help of which they can just fulfill their basic bare minimum needs. The nature of work in the bonded labor is often without wages or very low payment is given to them. The main issue with the bonded labor is the debt-based coercion, that a person is compelled to work. Why? Because that person is coming from a very poor background, or that person is in debt, and because of which that person is compelled to go through that bondage labor. Also, that further leads to loss of freedom and exploitation, that person is not able to do his work because of his will, rather he is doing the work because of the compulsion. And if you see the provisions in the constitution that are related to the bonded labor, Article 21, which provides right to life and personal liberty, that ensures life with dignity. But the people who are in the bonded labor, in a way, their Article 21 or their right to life and dignity and right to life and personal liberty is being violated. Article 23, which talks about prohibition of trafficking and forced labor. So this is a article that is going for a direct constitutional ban on the bonded labor. Article 24, that provides for prohibition of child labor in hazardous jobs, that also protects the children from the exploited labor or some form of the bonded labor. Article 42 under the directive principle of states policy provided under Part 4 of the Constitution. Under this, the objective is humane working conditions that should be provided to the employees. That helps in preventing the exploitative labor practices. For example, under the labor codes also there is a code for the occupational safety. Article 43 that talks about living wage and the decent life, that helps in addressing the economic roots of the bonded labor. That person should get that much of wage or the salary with the help of which they can sustain their life properly. Article 46 that provides for protection of SCs, STs and weaker section, that mainly targets the groups which are most vulnerable to the bondage, because this is the section of the society which is generally poor, having low income, and that is the reason they are more prone for this bonded labor. Then Bonded Labor System Abolition Act that came in 1976 that provides for the abolition of bonded labor, that helps in freeing the laborers, and they also provides for various provisions for penalizing the offenders. The core anti-bonded labor law in India. Child and Adolescent Labor Act of 1986, which was also amended in 2016, that bans work for children under age of 14, and this also restricts the hazardous work for 14 to 18 years. Juvenile Justice Act of 2015 that provides for care, protection and rehabilitation of children, and that provides for support to the children which are rescued. Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita BNS, and it also provides for penal provision against the unlawful and compulsory labor. If you talk about the international instruments, for example, we have the UN Convention on Rights of Child that came in 1989 that provides for protection from economic exploitation, and India has also ratified that. ILO Convention of 182 that came in 1999 that talks about the elimination of worst forms of child labor. India has also ratified that. Our next topic is Gait Analysis. Actually, this is related to one of the crime which was committed, and there was a tragic murder of one of the UPSC aspirant itself. So Delhi police used some Gait analysis to get an idea about the accused. Now, this is related to prelims general science, and this has appeared in today's Indian Express, page number 6. So, Gait analysis is the systematic study of human walking to assess the body movement, posture, muscle activity and joint function. This is mainly used in orthopedics, neurology, physiotherapy, sports science, rehabilitation, and at times it is also used to crack any of the criminal cases. So, here what is happening, that this gait cycle is the sequence between two successive heel strikes of the same foot. Stance phase, that is 60% of the cycle, and the main function of this stance phase is that whether foot is on ground, body support is there. Swing phase, that is 40% of cycle, that foot whenever it is in air, and the forward movement is happening of any one individual. So the way a person walks or moves, analysis of that is called as gait analysis. So there was CCTV cameras that were installed in this particular case, and when Delhi police started doing the gait analysis of the person in the CCTV with the actual person whom they have arrested earlier, they got an idea that this is the same person who was in the CCTV. So gait analysis gives us an idea about the study of the human walking. And this is all from today's Analyst. Thank you very much. All the very best. Keep studying.